Millions of people are giving up carbohydrates, following keto, low carb, and carnivore influencers when they want to lose belly fat, while millions of other people swear by low fat and gulp down one protein drink after another. These two camps are mortal enemies, and both camps have just been caught off guard by a single study, because the answer to the question of what really helps is neither low carb nor low fat. And this is not just my opinion. It is written in black and white in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology 2026, fresh off the press, and the data behind it is incredibly solid. Let's take a look at what is currently happening in the world of nutrition. Keto, carnivore, vegan, low fat. Every form of nutrition has its own guru, its own people, its own podcast, and everyone serves their own specific target group. Here, one really gets the impression that whoever screams the loudest and builds the greatest mystery around themselves is right. But very, very often, these are people who may have studied something, just not medicine, or they are college dropouts, which means they have never seen a single patient with a heart attack. How do I get a patient out of insulin resistance? How do I manage a diabetic? What happens when high blood pressure, diabetes, and severe obesity come together? They then simply post before and after photos of young, healthy, 25 or 30-year-olds who have lost 15 or 20 kilograms, and then they turn that into their nutritional philosophy. But the actual problem remains. One wonders which approach I should follow if I am overweight. And both approaches, low carb and low fat, often work. But from clinical practice, I can also tell you that they fail very, very often. I see people every day who do one method or the other, and they do it in such a way that they are actually actively harming themselves. I will give you examples of this in a moment, and this study has now confirmed the suspicion in that regard. It concerns a substance that is produced in your gut, and I guarantee you have never heard of it. Most diets actually bypass the biology of the gut. So, anyone who only counts calories but does not pay attention to the gut, flora, or ruins it further will never lose belly fat in the long term. Now let's look at what the study says about this. It was a massive study with a 30-year observation period, where nearly 200,000 people were followed for decades, resulting in 5.2 million person-years of data. As hard endpoints, they did not evaluate some questionnaires about well-being, or some before and after pictures, or how many kilograms someone lost, but rather over 20,000 documented heart attacks, meaning real hospital records were evaluated, and deaths. This is not an influencer study with 12 participants over 8 weeks followed by posting pictures, but truly high-quality science. And now comes the all-deciding difference compared to all other studies conducted so far. For the first time, they measured not only how much fat or how many carbohydrates someone ate, but how high quality those foods were. That sounds incredibly banal, but it isn't, because exactly this mistake is what I notice in practice. The best example, if you are a meat eater, what an animal gets to eat is de facto reflected in the meat quality. Oh, big surprise, no wonder, but still measurable. For example, pasture-fed animals with a lot of grass in their diet have fewer pro-inflammatory substances in their meat. And exactly here is where research in recent decades has repeatedly failed. They simply compared low carb with low fat, but never asked whether it was a good low carb or a bad low carb with high quality or cheap, simple foods. And here it comes, because what the study found is something both camps don't really want to hear. Let's talk first about low carb, the naked numbers. Those who do low carb and do it poorly, meaning a lot of processed meat, a lot of animal fats from factory farming, and low fiber. You often hear, "I eat carnivore," But fried bacon is my addiction. I can't get away from it. They have a 14% higher risk of heart attack compared to the control group. And conversely, those who do low carb and do it well, meaning they take plant proteins, high quality fats, minimal processing, lots of fresh and self-cooked food, they have a 15% lower risk of heart attack. That is a difference of almost 30 percentage points, and the only difference is the quality of what lies on the plate. And let's talk about low fat. In this study, we see exactly the same picture for low fat. Poor quality leads to a 12% higher risk of heart attack, while good quality leads to a 13% lower risk. Therefore, the diet category is almost irrelevant. The quality of the food decides everything. And now I will tell you why this doesn't surprise me either. Salmon with avocado or a burger patty with cheese are both called low carb, but they are not the same thing. When I sit at breakfast in a hotel with my esteemed US colleagues who have YouTube channels up to 10 times larger than mine, they come back with a monster omelet dripping with cheese, 4 to 5 eggs, fried bacon on the side, and a quarter of a tomato, because a tomato is a nightshade plant and contains anti-nutrients. When I then look at their terrible skin condition, I can put 2 and 2 together, and that is exactly what you should apply to your nutrition as well. What happens on the skin also happens on the inside, namely inflammation, and that is exactly what this study with over 20,000 heart attacks proves. No one can convince me that the majority of the people who eat carnivore or keto can fall back on high-quality food. That is actually a fraction who can truly afford high quality and want to afford it. The majority will fall back on meat from factory farming or simply on cheaper dairy products. Coming to the part that truly fascinates me, the Harvard researchers did not just evaluate nutritional questionnaires and hard data. They also analyzed blood samples. This is called metabolomics, which means looking directly into the blood and measuring which metabolic end products are circulating there. The result was clear. Those who eat well, whether it's healthy low carb or healthy low fat, have measurably more 3-indole propionic acid in their blood. This is a metabolic product that arises directly from fiber or whole grains and is, by the way, also an important marker for healthy gut flora. What does this 3-indole propionic acid do? This substance is like a natural protective shield that can directly slow down inflammation in the blood vessels. And as a strong antioxidant, this substance catches harmful substances before they can attack and damage the sensitive heart muscle cells. So, a high level of 3-indole propionic acid also ensures a more stable sugar metabolism, which protects the heart in the long term from the consequences of calcification and overload. On the other hand, those who eat poorly, whether it's bad low carb or bad low fat, had increased levels of C7 carnitine in their blood. This substance comes almost exclusively from red meat or processed meat and is somewhat unfavorable for us. Let's look at the carnitines again. Carnitines are key molecules of fat metabolism in the heart, and L-carnitine, you might know it, please do not confuse it. L-carnitine is an important helper that converts fatty acids into energy for the heart and also actively protects the cells from damage. However, if we find altered forms of these carnitines in the blood, such as this C7 carnitine or C7 acylcarnitine as it is called, then it indicates a metabolic congestion, and that in turn indicates an increased risk of heart attack. These values serve us doctors here to recognize an impending heart attack. It is important to note that, conversely, the administration of pure L-carnitine after a heart attack can help reduce mortality. So, this is a group of substances where it simply depends on which specific substance from this group we find in the blood. We know that meat eaters, especially of sausage products and red meat, simply form moderately more of this acylcarnitine. We find it increasingly in their blood. This means the biochemistry does not lie here. The inflammatory markers, the triglycerides, the HDL cholesterol, all of that reacts not only to the macronutrients, but to the food quality. This means those who eat well had lower triglycerides, a higher HDL, and a lower inflammation value, the CRP value, which is also the driver for silent inflammation. Those who eat poor quality food are, so to speak, maintaining their little fire of inflammation. And now we come to the point that annoys me the most in practice, because what the study defines as unhealthy low carb or unhealthy low fat is pretty much exactly what the food industry is currently trying to sell you. Some kind of low carb cheese puffs from the gym, fat-free fruit yogurt that instead has 15 grams of sugar in it, protein bars made of whey protein, palm oil, and 5 different sweeteners or light products that have little fat but instead contain refined carbohydrates and additives in massive quantities. This is exactly the opposite of what this study actually identified as protective. The only ones who profit from this are the food industry, specifically this confusion between low carb and low fat, because they can offer a shelf full of products for both camps that are both useless. And here is another detail from the study that I find truly remarkable. These protective effects were more pronounced in younger people who were not overweight and had normal blood pressure than in people who already had pre-existing conditions. In plain English, this means the earlier you start eating correctly and healthily, the more it protects you. Anyone who waits until the first blood pressure reading is no longer right, or the blood lipids somehow get out of hand, has simply already lost valuable time. Let's look at the dinner plate. What does this mean specifically for you? If you want to do low carb, go ahead, but then do it with salmon, avocado, legumes, nuts, or also olive oil, lots of vegetables, eggs, natural yogurt, things like that, cottage cheese, tofu, but just not with fried bacon and ham from the pan, or ordering burger patties in a restaurant without the bun, and also not with any salami snacks. If you prefer low fat, go ahead, but then do it with legumes, fruit, vegetables, plant proteins, a little whole grain, lentils, chickpeas, oatmeal, potatoes, rice, quinoa, berries, things like that. But just not with that stupid fat-free yogurt full of fructose, and also not with rice cakes with a chocolate coating. If you want to save yourself all of that and it becomes too complicated for you, then simply eat Mediterranean. And a Mediterranean diet is not the food you get at the local Italian place, and certainly not what you eat on vacation in Italy. But it is the term for a specific form of nutrition. There, you have olive oil instead of lard, and also fish instead of sausage. And there are many legumes. Some whole grain is included, many nuts, herbs, vegetables, and so on. With this, you truly have joy in eating, and then it doesn't feel like a diet. The Mediterranean diet remains the absolute top nutrition where people have the longest life expectancy overall. That's it. Thank you to the channel members. Without you, all of this would not be possible. Feel free to share this video if you feel that someone in your environment needs this right now. Someone who might be heading down the wrong path and filling themselves with cheap food just so they can stick to a certain form of nutrition. If this study changed the way you look at the food in your pantry, please subscribe and like this channel. We are digging up the scientific truths that the industry has tried to bury. Plant the seeds for your future health today. The next treasure of knowledge will be revealed very soon.